The billion-dollar mistake. The secret CEO wife waiting in Geneva. Stop! Before you dive into the truly devastating truth of this massive corporate takedown, let me ask you one thing. Should the husband, who gambled away his entire legacy on sheer arrogance and disloyalty, ever be entitled to a second chance? This man believed he was soaring toward unlimited power with his mistress, utterly unaware that his quiet wife was not only waiting for him in Geneva, but was the only person with the authority to decide his fate. Smash that like button right now, share this epic tale, and subscribe to the channel. The Silent Penthouse of Kensington. A man's true character is revealed not by the wealth he parades, but by the secrets he desperately keeps. For Elias Thorne, a London mogul, his secrets were about to collide at 30,000 feet. He boarded a private jet bound for Geneva for the deal of a lifetime, with his young, dazzling mistress, Chloe Vance, sipping champagne by his side. He believed he was flying toward a future of limitless influence, leaving his quiet, predictable wife, Audrey Vance Sterling, behind in their massive Kensington penthouse. What he failed to realize was that his wife wasn't just at home. She was waiting for him in Geneva. And she wasn't just a wife. She was the secret investor about to decide his entire corporate fate. The Kensington penthouse was silent, yet anything but peaceful. It held the heavy, oppressive quiet of things left unsaid, a stillness that hummed with the fluorescent glare of the London skyline. Elias Thorne stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of expensive 25-year-old single malt scotch in hand, the amber liquid trapping the city lights. He was a man carved from pure ambition. His reflection showed an impeccable suit and still handsome face, but one hardened by the constant pressure of financial warfare. His company, Thorne Logistics, a dominating empire in global shipping, was silently bleeding out. It was a slow internal hemorrhage that no one outside could see, but Elias felt it every day in the frantic pulse at his wrist. This trip to Geneva was everything. It wasn't just a deal, it was a vital lifeline. "Do you really need to pack so much, Audrey?" he said, without turning around. His voice, usually so commanding in boardrooms, was curt and impatient in his own home. Across the sprawling living space, Audrey Vance Sterling, formerly Audrey Vance Price, paused, her hands resting on a single, simple, elegant leather suitcase. She was the woman he had married 12 years ago, the perfect wife, reserved, intelligent, and most importantly, from a family whose name had opened crucial doors. She was, he thought, the ultimate status symbol, one that had conveniently receded into the background of his life. Her appearance was one of carefully curated simplicity, classic cashmere, understated pearls, and always immaculately styled hair. Tonight she looked tired, but her eyes, the color of a winter sea, were clear and strikingly perceptive. "It's a charity gala, Elias," she replied, her voice soft. "My sister is hosting it in Edinburgh. It requires several wardrobe changes." "Right, the gala," he scoffed, swirling the scotch. "While you're having lukewarm champagne and discussing auction items, I will be saving this company, our company." Audrey's fingers tightened on the handle of her luggage. "I am well aware of the gravity of your meeting, Elias. You've mentioned it." "Mentioned it?" He finally turned, his face a mask of stressed disbelief. "Audrey, this isn't just a meeting. This is Apex Redwood Ventures. This is the elusive A.R. Sterling. Do you have any idea who this is?" "A notoriously private investment consortium, I believe," she said calmly, reciting the facts she had read. "Very little is known." Elias gave a harsh, barking laugh. "They are a ghost, a multi-billion-dollar ghost, and they've finally agreed to a face-to-face meeting. Their capital injection will not just keep us afloat, it will make us untouchable. I've been chasing this for 2 years. 2 years. And you're packing for a party? He saw the flicker in her eyes, but mistook it for hurt. In reality, it was pity. I truly wish you success, Elias. I don't need wishes, Audrey. I need focus, which is why, he said, walking to his own polished aluminum briefcase. I'll be taking the Gulfstream tomorrow morning. I need to be sharp. No commercial flights. No distractions. Of course, she said. I'll be leaving for Edinburgh around the same time. I'll have John drive me to Heathrow. Fine. He finished his drink in an aggressive gulp, the ice clattering sharply. He brushed past her, deliberately avoiding eye contact, and disappeared into his study. The heavy door clicked shut. Audrey stood alone in the vast room for a long moment. The mask of the compliant wife dissolved, her posture straightened, the fatigue replaced by a cold, sharp energy. She walked to the window he had just left, gazing over the city that was his perceived chessboard. He was so consumed by his own reflection that he never saw the player staring back. She pulled out her other phone, a plain, unadorned device. This one contained her real life. She sent a single, encrypted text to a number saved as Mr. Davies. The reply was instantaneous. She deleted the exchange. She looked back at the closed study door. He was in there. She knew. Not just reviewing spreadsheets. He was calling her. Inside the study, Elias was facing away from the door, his voice now a low, intimate murmur. I know. I just got away. Yes, she's going to Edinburgh. Charity nonsense. Perfect timing. Of course you're coming. Did you ever doubt it? Pack the best you have. I want you to see Geneva. A pause, and he smiled, a genuine, predatory grin that Audrey hadn't seen in years. Don't worry about the wife, Chloe, he whispered. She has no idea how the real world works. Now tell me what you're going to wear. Outside, Audrey zipped up her suitcase. The click of the latch was loud and final, like the cocking of a gun. She had packed for a gala, yes, but the gala was in Geneva, and she was the guest of honor, CTA. Before we continue, if you think Elias is already getting what he deserves, comment, "Arrogance pays." Don't forget to like this video. Arrogance takes flight. The pre-dawn light was a cold, metallic gray, washing over the sterile luxury of the private runway at Luton Airport. Elias Thorne, immaculate in a dark Loro Piana travel suit, stepped out of his black Range Rover onto the steps of the Gulfstream GT280. Hours earlier, he had given Audrey a perfunctory, cold kiss on the cheek in the foyer, a pantomime of farewell for the doorman. He felt the familiar, brief pinch of guilt, followed by the immediate, intoxicating rush of freedom. He was escaping. "Good morning, Mr. Thorne," greeted the pilot, a man named Roger. "We lift in 15. Flight path is clear to Geneva." "Excellent, Roger. We have one more passenger," Elias said, checking his Cartier watch. As if summoned, a sleek crimson McLaren pulled up with a screech on the tarmac. A blatant breach of protocol that Elias found, in this instance, amusing. The door swung open, and Chloe Vance emerged. She was 24, a former intern from his marketing department, and possessed a beauty so vibrant it was almost jarring. She wore white leather trousers, a sheer blouse, and sunglasses that covered half her face, her blonde hair streaming behind her. She was Audrey's antithesis, loud, demanding, and openly ambitious. "Elias, darling!" she shrieked, running up and kissing him hard. "I thought you'd leave without me. That traffic was a nightmare." "I wouldn't dream of it," he murmured, his hand sliding down her back. He felt the familiar jolt of possession, the thrill of the forbidden. "Is this it?" she said, looking up at the sleek jet. "It's cute. Is it new?" "It'll get us there," Elias said, ushering her up the steps. Inside, the cabin was a sea of cream leather and polished walnut. An attendant was already pouring champagne. Vintage Dom Perignon, Thank God, Chloe breathed, sinking into a seat. I can't wait to get out of London, and away from, well, you know. She made a vague gesture, demising his entire domestic life. To Geneva, Elias said, clinking his glass against hers. And to Apex. To us, Chloe corrected, leaning in. When this deal is closed, Elias, you have to promise me. No more hiding. I am so tired of being your secret. I deserve to be seen. When this deal closes, Elias said, the champagne and altitude already making him feel invincible. I can do anything I want. He saw his future, a new dynamic life with Chloe. His company revitalized, the old Audrey surgically and cleanly removed. As their jet taxied and soared into the sky, turning east over the North Sea, another, far more discreet departure took place from Heathrow. Audrey Vance Sterling, in a plain but impeccably tailored navy pantsuit, sat in the anonymous, quiet comfort of a commercial first-class cabin. She had her laptop open, but the screen was angled away from her seatmate. She wasn't reviewing charity auction items. She was analyzing the final debt-to-equity ratios for Thorne Logistics. Her other phone vibrated. It was Mr. Davies, her chief operating officer at Apex Redwood Ventures. Subject: aircraft airborne, manifest confirmed. 2 passengers, E. Thorne, C. Vance. Audrey's face remained impassive. Chloe Vance. He actually brought her. He brought the intern he'd been sleeping with for 8 months, the one he thought she knew nothing about, to the most important meeting of his life. The audacity was breathtaking. It was so Elias. She had known about Chloe for 6 of those 8 months. The private investigator's report had been clinical, thorough, and gut-wrenching. But the heartbreak had quickly chilled, solidifying into something far harder and more useful. Resolve. Her marriage was a casualty. Her family's legacy was not. Elias believed she was Audrey Thorne, the quiet wife, whose family money was a passive, abstract thing she barely understood. He had no idea that her father, Arthur Vance Sterling, hadn't just left her a fortune. He had left her an education. He had trained her since she was 16 to take over the real family business. Not the public charity work of the Vance Foundation, but the silent, powerful entity of Apex Redwood Ventures. A.R. Sterling wasn't some unknown man. It was Audrey Redwood Sterling, using her maternal grandmother's maiden name, Sterling, for the business. Elias had been frantically trying to secure a meeting with A.R. Sterling for 2 years, leveraging his connection to the Vance family, never for a moment imagining that the Sterling in the firm's name was his own wife's. "Another coffee, ma'am?" the attendant asked. "Please," Audrey said, offering a distant smile. "And a bottle of still water. I have a long day of meetings when we land." While Elias and Chloe dozed in their pressurized cabin, drunk on champagne and hubris, Audrey worked. She cross-referenced the assets Elias had leveraged for his last-minute loans. She saw the properties, the stock portfolios, the art. And she saw it. He had mortgaged the deed to their Kensington penthouse, not just his half, her half too. He had forged her signature. She closed the laptop. The quiet hum of the Boeing engines was the only sound. The fog of her sadness was gone, burned away by a clean, white-hot rage. He wasn't just trying to save his company. He was trying to gamble with her legacy. He was trying to pay his mistress with her father's money. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their initial descent into Paris. It was a short, simple flight. A decoy. She would land, walk through the terminal, exit to a waiting car, and be driven not to a charity gala, but to the private aviation wing of the Parisian airport. Her own jet, a faster, more advanced Bombardier Global 8000, registered to a shell corporation in Delaware, was waiting. She would be in Geneva 6 hours before him, She would be rested, prepared, and waiting. Her board of directors, her board, was already assembling. The trap was set. All the mouse had to do was arrive for the cheese. Question for the audience. Audrey Vance Sterling is now revealed as A.R. Sterling, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Do you think her plan to include Chloe in the meeting is an act of deserved justice or extreme cruelty? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. The trap on Lake Geneva. Geneva was a picture of sharp precision and ancient pedigree. The lake air was crisp, and the city operated with the quiet, expensive hum of a Swiss timepiece. Elias's Gulfstream landed at Geneva Airport with a smoothness that felt symbolic. He was in his element. He was a conqueror. "Ah, Geneva," Chloe said, pulling off her silk sleep mask. "It's so clean. Elias, we have to go to Rue du Rhône. I need a new watch, a Patek Philippe, to celebrate." "First the deal, my love. Then we buy the entire street," Elias said, snapping his cufflinks closed. A black Mercedes Maybach was waiting for them on the tarmac. As they settled into the opulent leather, Elias's phone buzzed. It was an email from Mr. Davies, the Apex representative. "Mr. Thorne, we are pleased to welcome you to Geneva. Your accommodation is confirmed at the Beau Rivage Palace. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow, 10 a.m. at our headquarters. A car will collect you at 0930. We trust your journey was pleasant. Sincerely, M.R. Davies, Office of the Principal Director." "The Beau Rivage Palace? Presidential suite, I hope?" Chloe asked, already sending photos to her friends. "They're taking care of it," Elias said, impressed. "They're old school, professional. This is how real money moves, Chloe. Silently." The suite was, in a word, palatial. A Dom Perignon rosé was chilling in a silver ice bucket. "Now this looks more like what we deserve," Chloe purred, dropping her fur coat onto a chaise lounge. "Stop being so boring. You've practically won," she said, popping the cork. "You are a king, Elias, and I am going to be your queen. That poor, boring wife of yours. What was her name?" "Audrey. She probably thinks you're in some dreary business hotel, eating a sandwich." Elias laughed. "She's probably choosing flower arrangements for her sister's dull party. She has no concept of this world. Her family had money, sure, but they were academics. Quiet. All that matters is that she stays in her lane." "And what's my lane?" Chloe asked, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Right here," he murmured, kissing her. "You are my reward." They dined at Le Chat Beauté, the hotel's Michelin-starred restaurant. Elias spoke loudly about his company, his plans, his inevitable success. Chloe hung on his every word, her eyes gleaming with the reflection of his limitless credit card potential. They were the perfect image of new money, brash and conquering. Across the lake, in a different, more discreet wing of the same hotel, Audrey was finishing her own dinner. She wasn't in the presidential suite. She was in the Sterling residence, an unlisted private apartment reserved for the hotel's most powerful, anonymous guests. Guests who, like her family, had been patrons for generations. She ate a simple meal of grilled fish and vegetables, her table covered not with champagne bottles, but with legal documents. Mr. Davies, a stern man in his 50s, with the quiet competence of a chess master, sat across from her. "The final audit is complete, Ms. Vance," Davies said, sliding a folder across the table. "He did it. He forged your signature on the Kensington mortgage agreement." Audrey's expression didn't change. She opened the folder and read the details. The forgery was clumsy, the attempt of a desperate man to copy her fluid signature. "He's arrogant," she said, her voice a low, steady monotone. "He's always believed intelligence is measured in decibels. He thinks because I am quiet, I am stupid. Also, against your company's bylaws, He has used the employee pension fund to cover operational shortfalls this quarter, Davies added. That made her stop. The pensions, her father's employees. He's drowning, and he's dragging everyone down with him. Audrey closed the folder. The illusion she had maintained of the man she married was gone. In its place was a common criminal, a fool, and a cheat. And the other matter? She asked, without looking up. The guest, Davies said, with a slight frown of distaste. Chloe Vance. She is with him in the presidential suite. Of course she is, Audrey said. She walked to her own terrace. The view was the same as Elias's, but she saw it differently. He saw a prize. She saw a panorama of her responsibilities. He brought her to the table, Audrey said, more to herself than to Davies. He brought his infidelity, his disrespect into my world, my family's world. How would you like to proceed, Ms. Vance? Davies asked. We can have the hotel manager remove her. No, Audrey said, her voice cutting through the night air. No, Mr. Davies. Let her stay. Have her come with him tomorrow. Davies looked surprised. To the meeting? Ms. Vance, that is highly irregular. It is a closed-door board meeting. It is my board meeting, Audrey corrected him, turning around. Her eyes were like steel. He wants to show her his new life? Fine. I want her to have a front-row seat to the finale. Make the security arrangements. I want her in that room. I want her to see exactly what happens when a man like Elias Thorne mistakes his wife's patience for his permission. CTA. This is the turning point. Press the subscribe button to witness the epic showdown that's coming next. The boardroom execution, the morning of the meeting, dawned bright and clear. In the presidential suite, Elias Thorne felt invincible. He was dressed in his best bespoke suit, a crimson power tie knotted perfectly. He looked, he thought, like a man who couldn't lose. Elias, are you still talking to yourself? You're going to be late, and my stomach is rumbling, Chloe said, emerging wrapped in a plush hotel robe. I'm coming with you, she said, her face immediately wrinkling into a pout. You said I was your partner. It's ridiculous. This is a closed-door meeting with a multi-billion-dollar investment firm. You can't just tag along. I think it's highly appropriate, she argued, her voice hardening. I want to see you in action. I want them to see the woman who will be standing by your side. It shows strength. It shows you're a modern man, not hiding behind some bland wife. Elias's ego was tempted. What better way to show this ghost, Sterling, that he was a man of decision and vitality? An hour later, they descended. Chloe had chosen a vibrant red dress. The Maybach was waiting. Apex headquarters, Elias told the driver, his voice ringing with confidence. Yes, Mr. Thorne, I know the way. At the precise moment they were entering the sleek, modern glass and steel building. 2 floors up, Audrey was standing at the head of a long, imposing boardroom table. The room was vast, with a glass wall overlooking the lake. She wore a severe charcoal gray wool suit. Her only adornment was her father's watch and discreet diamond studs. Security confirms they are in the elevator. Both of them, Mr. Davies said. Good, Audrey said. Her voice was ice. Ms. Vance, are you absolutely sure about this? The Swiss lawyer interjected. Stunts are unpredictable. Mr. Berger, Audrey said, her voice so cold it seemed to lower the temperature in the room. When a surgeon has to remove a cancer, he doesn't send in his assistant to do it. He cuts it out himself, with precision. She heard the faint ding of the private elevator arriving at the reception area. Take your seats, gentlemen, Audrey said, turning around. She walked to the high-backed leather chair at the head of the table and sat down. Her hands were perfectly steady. She simply waited. The double doors opened. Elias and Chloe walked in. The first thing that hit Elias was the silence. It was the cold, sterile silence of an operating room. The figure at the front, silhouetted against the blinding window, leaned forward slightly. It was Audrey. Elias's brain refused to process the image. This was impossible. Audrey was in Edinburgh. She was Audrey. She wasn't here, in that suit, at the head of that table, looking at him with eyes he had never seen. Eyes as flat and cold as glacial ice. Audrey? The name came out as a choked whisper. What are you doing here? How? Is this a joke? Chloe, peering over his shoulder, let out a confused, nervous giggle. Audrey? Oh my God, Elias, this is your wife. What is she? The secretary? Sweetheart, can you grab us a coffee? 2, please. Black for him. Extra sweet latte for me. No one moved. Audrey looked past Elias, her gaze resting on Chloe for one dismissive second. She didn't acknowledge the coffee order. Instead, she looked directly at her husband. Mr. Thorne, she said, and the voice that came out was not his wife's. It was a boardroom contralto, carrying absolute, unquestionable authority. Please take a seat. You too, Ms. Vance. I believe you requested to be here. Elias, his face colorless, finally found his legs. He stumbled into the chair across from Davies. Audrey, explain this, now. Explanation. Audrey raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. I believe you are the one here to present a proposal, Mr. Thorne. He looked at the name plaque on the table in front of her. It read, A.R. Sterling, Principal Director. His blood ran cold. A.R. Sterling. Audrey. Redwood. Sterling. Oh, Elias, Chloe said, her voice now sharp and brittle. Is this some kind of ambush? Did your wife follow you? Silence, Mr. Davies said, his voice quiet but absolute. Elias, this is absurd, Audrey continued, ignoring the interruption. You came all this way. You brought your consultant. Please begin your presentation. We are all very eager to hear about the aggressive, forward-thinking, optimized paradigm you propose. She had quoted his words from the mirror. He realized with a mounting, nauseating horror that the suite had been bugged. They had been listening to him. You did this, he hissed, half rising from his chair. The shock was turning to rage. You set me up. This whole thing. The meeting. The Vance mystery. It was you. I did nothing, Elias, Audrey said calmly. You are the CEO of Thorne Logistics. You are the one who ran it into the ground. You are the one who pursued my firm for a bailout. And you are the one who chose to bring his intern to the meeting. I simply arranged the seating. You bloody witch! Elias spat, surging onto his feet. Sit down, Mr. Thorne, the lawyer snapped. 2 large security guards materialized from an alcove. Now, Audrey said, opening the sleek folder in front of her. Let us dispense with your presentation. We've read it. And frankly, the fiction section at the airport bookstore is more believable. The massive wall behind her lit up. It was a massive digital screen. On it was a single document, the real balance sheet for Thorne Logistics. This, Audrey said, is your company, not the fantasy you've been selling. Let us begin with the $80 million operational shortfall you have been concealing by utilizing your employee pension fund. An act, I might add, that is highly illegal. And, Audrey continued, flicking to the next slide, we might discuss the series of bridge loans you have taken out. Specifically this one, from a small boutique bank in the Cayman Islands. The next slide showed a document, a mortgage agreement. That, Audrey said, is the deed to our Kensington penthouse, an asset I own 50% of, per our prenuptial agreement, an asset you leveraged without my knowledge. She zoomed in. The signature, Audrey D. Thorne, was visible. It was a shaky, unconvincing scrawl. And that, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, is a felony, Elias. A very, very clumsy forgery. Chloe finally broke the silence. A prenuptial agreement? She whispered, eyes wide with terror. You told me there was no prenup. You said half of everything was yours. He lied, Ms. Vance, Audrey said simply. She looked at the terrified young woman. He lies about everything. It is his nature. Now, let us move to the terms of my decision. Audrey, Please, he managed, his voice hoarse. We can fix this. It's just creative accounting. I was trying to protect us. To protect you. Audrey laughed. It was short, sharp, and utterly humorless. Protect me, she repeated. You were protecting me when you mortgaged my home? You were protecting me when you stole from your employees? Or, and here her eyes moved to Chloe, who looked physically ill, were you protecting me when you booked this trip, using company funds to fly your mistress to Geneva on a G280? The color drained from Chloe's face. Company funds? You said it was your jet. Elias does not own a jet, Ms. Vance. Mr. Davies interjected, his voice dripping with disdain. He leases it, and he is 3 months behind on the payments. We know. We bought the debt. You bought my debt? Elias stammered. We own all your debt, Elias, Audrey said, rising to her feet. For the past 6 months, while you were distracted, Apex has been quietly acquiring every piece of outstanding Thorn Logistics debt. The Cayman loan? That was us. The leasing for your corporate headquarters in London? We are your new landlord. You have not been trying to get a meeting with a new investor, Elias. You have, unbeknownst to yourself, been corresponding with your largest creditor. Elias was not here for a lifeline. He had been summoned for an execution. Why? Why would you do this? We're married. We were married, Audrey said, stopping right in front of him. She leaned in, placing her hands flat on the gleaming table. And as your wife, I had a front row seat. I watched you turn into this hollow, arrogant, dismissive, and careless man. You thought I was a fool, Elias, a mere adornment. My father, Arthur Vance Sterling, did not raise a fool. He raised his successor, she said, turning to address the room. He left me in control of this firm, a firm you saw as a target, never connecting it to the woman sleeping in your bed. So no, Mr. Thorne, Apex will not be investing $300 million to save your company. We will be calling in the $500 million in debt you already owe us, effective immediately. No! Elias shrieked, jumping back onto his feet. You can't! That will bankrupt me. I'll be ruined. You are already ruined, Elias, Audrey said flatly. You did this to yourself. The prenuptial agreement, the infidelity clause, shouted the lawyer. Berger, sliding a document over. It is very specific, Berger said, clearly enjoying himself. It stipulates that in the event of proven marital infidelity on the part of Mr. Thorne, he forfeits any and all claim to shared assets, including real estate and liquid accounts. All claims revert to Ms. Vance. Proven? You can't prove anything, Elias snapped. Audrey sighed. Elias, please don't make this more pathetic than it already is. Mr. Davies, the main screen lit up again. This time, it was photographs. Elias and Chloe kissing. Date stamps. The next, a clear shot of them on the runway at Luton. The next, a security camera frame from inside the Beau Rivage Palace elevator, showing them in a passionate embrace. Chloe let out a small, choked sob. And that, Audrey said, as the screen went black, is before we even get to the forgery, the pension fraud, and the embezzlement of company funds to pay for this. She gestured vaguely at Chloe. You are not just facing a divorce, Elias. You are facing the FCA, the pensions regulator, and the New York Attorney General. You are not just losing your company. You are losing your freedom. Elias collapsed into his chair. He was a man in a designer suit he no longer owned, and a watch he would have to sell. Mr. Davies will present you with 2 options. Option A. You sign these documents, transfer your remaining shares, and signing authority, accept the terms of the pre-NUP, and you walk out of here with nothing. In exchange, Apex may elect to handle the fraud internally and save the employee pension fund. Option B. You refuse, and I call the police. Right now. Audrey walked toward the door. Oh, and Elias. He looked up, his eyes empty and dead. The presidential suite was booked on my account, as was your jet. Your credit cards were frozen an hour ago. So, however this ends, you'll have to find your own way home." She walked out of the room, leaving him alone with the lawyers, the security guards, and the weeping girl in the red dress. Question for the audience. Do you think Audrey's revenge was justified? Or was this a cold, calculated destruction? Could Elias have been redeemed? Or was he a victim of his own incurable arrogance? Tell me your reflections in the comments. The humiliation arrives. The commercial Swiss Air flight to London was, for Elias Thorne, a 10-hour torment. Sitting in the middle seat of economy class, between a loud tourist and a mother with a crying baby, the Loro Piana suit he wore felt like a shroud. Every turbulence was a physical reminder that his life, built on control and luxury, had utterly crumbled. He landed at London Heathrow with no luggage, no cards, and only the small amount of cash he had in his pocket, £70. At the same time, and almost cosmically, Chloe Vance landed in the terminal next door. Her tears were no longer of hysteria. They were of cold, calculating rage. She had spent the last hours of the flight unsuccessfully trying to sell her fake Patek Philippe, an earlier gift from Elias, to other economy passengers, until a TikToker recognized her. Her dream of being Mrs. Thorne had turned into a viral nightmare. The G280 queen who landed in economy. Elias, unable to call a luxury taxi, had to take the tube. His office, Edouas in the Shard, was his only option. Upon arriving at reception, the security guard, a man he had always ignored, stopped him with a look of pity. "Excuse me, Mr. Thorne," the guard said, not using the usual respectful "sir." "Security has changed. You no longer have access to this building." "What the hell are you saying? I'm the CEO of Thorne Logistics." Elias felt the blood rush to his neck. "No, sir. Mr. Davies of Apex Logistics has assumed directorship. By order of the board, you are not permitted entry." In that moment, Elias understood. He hadn't just lost his company. Audrey had erased it. She had used her financial power to wipe out the brand his father had built. Thorne Logistics had died in Geneva. It was now simply Apex Logistics, with Audrey at the helm, the court of public opinion. The financial press in London and Geneva had a field day. The news wasn't a simple divorce, but a corporate scandal of epic proportions. Mogul falls to fraud and forgery. His quiet wife, the real CEO of AR Sterling, takes his throne and his company. The headline that hurt Elias the most ran in the Financial Times. Audrey Vance Sterling, the woman who conquered ego with €500 million. The repercussions were immediate. Elias's few remaining friends and partners fled. Reputation, the one asset he had left, turned to ash. From being a Wall Street wolf on Kensington High Street, he became a footnote, the fool who had dared to steal from his owner. The Queen's reappearance. A week after the Geneva drama, Audrey Vance Sterling reappeared publicly. It was not at a charity gala, but at a press conference at the Savoy Hotel to announce the restructuring of the former Thorne Logistics. Audrey was a different woman. The quiet cashmere had been replaced by sharply tailored suits. Her hair, once demure, was styled into an elegant, professional look that emphasized her cold, wintry eyes. She exuded a calm that was more intimidating than any of Elias's shouting. "My predecessor," Audrey told reporters, never mentioning Elias by name, "made severe lapses in judgment, abusing the trust of his employees and partners. Apex Logistics has ensured that the company's pension fund has been fully restored and topped up with additional capital. Our mission is simple: to return control to ethics and professionalism." When one journalist dared to ask if she felt remorse over the total destruction of her ex-husband, Audrey took a moment. Her response became the morning's headline. "I did not seek destruction. I sought extirpation," she said, her voice clear. "Loyalty is not an adornment. Trust is not a decorative object. My action was not spousal vengeance. It was a fiduciary obligation to my family, my employees, and the principles my father taught me. I assure you, Mr. Thorne destroyed himself. I merely tidied the wreckage. The message was clear. She was a business person, and her ex-husband had been a bad investment that needed to be liquidated. Audrey had all the power. But is she at peace? Do you think success and cold justice can fill the void of a failed marriage and the pain of a betrayal? I want to know your opinion in the comment section. The final act, Chloe and Elias. While Audrey ascended as the new queen of business in London, Elias's life crumbled into darkness. With no access to accounts, the penthouse seized, and facing multiple lawsuits over the pension fraud, even though Apex had mitigated it, the law didn't forgive forgery. Elias found himself sleeping on the couch of an ex-associate who quickly grew tired of his misery. His only contact was with Chloe Vance. Desperate and penniless, her credit card stopped working at the Beau Rivage Palace, just as Davies warned. Chloe attempted to blame Elias. They met in a seedy bar in Soho. "You owe me money!" Chloe shrieked, her red Geneva dress wrinkled and stained. "You promised me a life! You ruined me, you tart!" Elias screamed back, already out of dignity. His face, once chiseled by ambition, was now puffy with fear and cheap alcohol. "I wasn't the one going to jail for forgery," Chloe retorted. "I was just the stupid mistress. At least I have a story to sell." And sell it she did. Chloe, seeing she couldn't get money from Elias, used him the only way possible. She signed an exclusivity contract with a trash TV show, The Celebrity Bedpost, where she exposed every intimate and humiliating detail of Elias's fraudulent lifestyle, from his lies to his pathetic belief in his own invincibility. Elias, seeing himself betrayed again by the person he had risked everything for, finally broke. The next day, the police, acting on the forgery documents that Audrey, in her clemency, had decided not to file, simply handling them internally, finally tracked him down. The man who had flown a private jet was led to a holding cell in a police van, the legacy of the successor. 1 year later, Audrey's Apex Logistics was a resounding success. Free of Elias's burden, the company had restructured and expanded with impeccable ethics. Audrey had moved into a more discreet but historic property in the Mayfair district. She was at peace. The pain of the marriage was gone, replaced by the satisfaction of her own power. She had learned the most important lesson. The real luxury is not having money, but having control over your own narrative. Elias Thorne, the king who mistook his mirror for his world, faced a grim future. His fall was total, but the only person he could blame was the man who drank scotch in the Kensington penthouse and thought his wife was an ornament. The silent dominance, the final encounter, and the price of control. This is the final act. We've seen the collapse, the rise, and the humiliation. But the real question is, will Audrey Vance Sterling find happiness after the revenge? And what is the final state of Elias Thorne, 2 years after losing everything? Don't miss the encounter that changes everything. If you've loved this saga of betrayal and power, comment, Audrey, the Queen. And of course, like and subscribe to support our content. The architect of her own destiny, 2 years after the corporate execution in Geneva, Audrey Vance Sterling had solidified her position. Apex Logistics was not just an ethical giant. Under her direction, it was a prodigy of efficiency. She had transformed a company built on ego and debt into a responsible business model, proving that true financial strength lies in integrity. Her public life moved in circles of real power, not showy money. She was a regular at the World Economic Forum in Davos, a trusted advisor on the EU Commission for Sustainable Logistics Issues, and had become the new lead patron of the arts in London, honoring her mother's memory. Audrey no longer introduced herself as Audrey Thorne or Ms. Vance. She was simply A.R. Sterling, the principal director who ran meetings with icy precision and unparalleled long-term vision. The coldness Elias had noted in Geneva had become her armor, a shield of absolute emotional control. Yet, despite the stunning success, her personal life remained hermetically sealed. Her Mayfair penthouse was a haven of calm, but it was often empty. Mr. Davies, her loyal COO, once dared to ask her, "Ms. Vance, you have conquered the world. You have vindicated your name and your father's legacy. But do you find happiness?" Audrey looked at him over her reading glasses. "Mr. Davies, happiness is a distraction. What I found is control, and control is the only peace I know." Elias's last asset, while Audrey ascended, Elias Thorne's downfall was completed. The pension fraud, though mitigated by Apex's intervention, coupled with the mortgage forgery, led to a long, humiliating court process. In the end, he was convicted of several lesser charges of fraud and embezzlement, serving a short but socially devastating sentence in a minimum security prison outside London. Upon release, he had nothing. His former contacts shunned him like the plague. The little money he managed to save was consumed by lawyers. Even Chloe Vance's humiliating fame on the gossip show had disappeared, replaced by newer scandals. Elias became a shadow. He took a humble job as a delivery driver for a small, subcontracted courier company. The irony was brutal. The man who had run one of the largest logistics firms in the UK was now driving a beaten-up van, battling London traffic for minimum wage, delivering packages that, in another life, would have been moved by his own cargo jets. The encounter on High Street on a cold autumn day, Audrey had a high-level meeting at the Shard, in the heart of London's financial district. She wore a camel cashmere coat, now from an ultra-luxurious, discreet Italian brand, not a second-hand label. Her chauffeur, in a discreetly armored Apex Audi, pulled into a narrow side street so she could grab a quiet coffee before going inside. While waiting for the drink, she felt a sudden need for fresh air and walked a few feet down the pavement. At that moment, a dented white delivery van pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, his uniform shirt wrinkled, his face tired, and a 2-day growth of stubble. It was Elias. Elias hadn't changed much physically, but his aura was completely gone. The predatory gleam in his eyes had been replaced by the weary resignation of survival. He was so focused on finding the correct package that he didn't notice the woman standing a few feet away. Audrey saw him. She recognized him instantly, even though he had aged a decade and 2 years. He was the man who had wronged her so greatly, who had underestimated her in the most catastrophic way, the man for whom she had gambled her heart and her legacy. Elias finally straightened up with the package in hand. He looked up to cross the street and met her gaze. The recognition hit him with the force of lightning. His eyes widened in terror and humiliation. It wasn't rage or even sadness. It was pure, unmistakable shame. His jaw dropped slightly as he recognized the cashmere coat, the impeccable cut of the suit, and, most of all, the glacial calm in her eyes. Elias tried to speak. His mouth moved, but only a choked sound came out. "Audrey." She, however, did not flinch. There was not an ounce of mockery, no triumph, and no lingering malice. Just a profound indifference. Audrey did not take a step. She made no gesture. She simply held him in her gaze, the multi-billion-dollar CEO looking at the man who was about to deliver a sub-$20 package. The silence between them was Elias's final, cruelest condemnation. She didn't hate him. She had already forgotten him. After what felt like an eternity, Audrey broke eye contact. She glanced at her father's watch, discreetly signaling that her time with him was over. "Ms. Vance," her chauffeur said, appearing just then. "Your coffee, and traffic is building up." "Thank you, John," Audrey said in her clear contralto voice. She didn't even look at Elias a second time. She turned and walked to her car. The door closed. The silent motor of the Apex Audi glided into the main thoroughfare of the financial district. Elias stood there, holding the package, staring at the spot where she had stood. He didn't move until the Audi was out of sight. In that moment, he released a breath he didn't know he was holding, and the brown paper package slipped from his numb fingers and fell onto the pavement. He felt no urge to pick it up. He realized that this encounter, this moment of utter indifference, was the true end. Not the courtroom, not Geneva. The punishment was not losing the money. It was becoming invisible. A new dawn. Audrey stepped into the boardroom at the Shard. She sat at the head of the table, the architect of her own destiny. The ghost of Elias Thorne, at last, had vanished. She had not sought a new husband or a new partner. Instead, Audrey had invested in herself, using the immense wealth to boost her mother's foundation, focusing on the empowerment of young women in finance and technology. She had understood. True freedom is not the absence of an oppressive husband, but the presence of an unwavering purpose. And that purpose was to prove that a quiet woman, once deemed an adornment, could not only build an empire, but also rebuild her world. Do you think Audrey made the right choice by not saying a single word to Elias in that final encounter? Or do you think he deserved one last line, one piece of closure? Thank you for listening to this epic journey of secrets and powerful truths that always come to light. Please, hit that like button. Share this video with a friend. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more.